All right, we are live. So, Justin and I are going to be talking about restaurants, delivery apps, and the food business in general. And I'm gonna play the intro, and then we'll get right into it. I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win. All right. So just as we get started here, I have a little bit of housekeeping to let everyone know about. This is going to be the last live stream in February. We've got a holiday here next week, and then we have a bunch of my personal stuff happening on Mondays over the next couple of weeks. But when we come back in March, live streams are going to be moving to Thursday afternoon. So it's something new that we're doing for 2026. We're reorganizing the schedule a little bit. We'll also be moving the Wednesday videos. We'll start to move over to Monday. So we're going to have a little bit of a change in our schedule starting in March. But I'm here today with Justin Andrews. How you doing today, Justin?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Justin is a veteran of the restaurant industry, and you're working on a startup right now that's going to help restaurants and people who own commercial kitchens. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background on yourself and how you got into the food business?
Sure. Yeah. I've always been a foodie ever since I was young. I was in university right out of high school. Thought I wanted to be a lawyer. My grades were terrible. I wasn't happy, so I dropped out. And my dad said, "Why don't you go to cooking school?" And I was like, "Well, that's a random plot twist." But it was only a third of the price of university, so I said, "Why not?" And I dove in, and it was really the best thing I ever did. Cooking school was an absolute blast. It was the best 2 years of my life. And following that, I worked full-time in food service for about 6 years. I've done everything from fine dining. I did an internship at Walt Disney World. I've cooked in Costa Rica in the jungle for 1,000 people per meal at music festival.
Wow.
I've done private chef stuff. I've really done like every type of possible food service you could imagine. And my favorite is like small, intimate dining, cooking for 20 to 30 people. I've done some private chef work where I can interact with the guests, but I've really touched a lot of that. But then I realized, chefs don't get paid a lot. So I went back to school, did a degree in sustainability. And during that time, I got to work for a number of not-for-profits and research orgs. So I've gotten some of the kind of grassroots hands-on food experience, as well as a bit more of the policy lens as well.
Okay. And you and I met at a trade show here in Moncton last fall, Food and Beverage Atlantic.
Mhm.
You were there promoting a new business that you're working on that we will talk about here today. But you reached back out to me when I released a video a couple weeks ago about whether delivery apps were ruining the restaurant industry. I
Mhm.
put a link to that video down below in the notes. But why don't you let us know how you reacted to that video when you saw it, the one that I had made?
Yeah, well, there was a big synchronicity there because I had just had a conversation I live in Montreal now. I had just had a conversation the day before with one of my favorite cafe owners here in Montreal who was complaining about delivery apps. And, he had a hard time with them. And then I saw your post the next day and I was like, wow, like the universe is really telling me something here. So I had, it was fresh top of mind and I had this like fresh insight from somebody on the ground, plus my own experience in the past working at restaurants with delivery apps. And I was like, oh, I want to dig into this because I don't think it's as easy to say they're good or bad. I think every region is going to have completely different circumstances depending on the number of users and, all sorts of things. But definitely there's a lot to unpack. So I was excited to see your post and dive into this.
Well, so I was looking at it from the point of view of money and finances, but when you reached out to me, you kind of pointed out that you had experience being the chef in the kitchen,
Mhm.
trying to do dinner service when all of a sudden these orders start coming in. You want to tell us a little bit about what it can be like for the people in the kitchen who are creating the meals and everything, and how the apps kind of interrupt or affect the workflow that they have back there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if nobody's ever worked on a line in a restaurant, it might be hard to visualize, but just imagine, you have 5 or 6 tickets on the window, you have a full dining room, people are keep coming in the restaurant, the phone's ringing, getting phone orders, and then all of a sudden you hear the do 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 do, and that noise is going to keep going until somebody acknowledges this button. And the restaurants that I worked at, it was the servers who would acknowledge the button, and they would just click approve, and then another ticket would pop out. So it's really just about volume. There's only so many meals we can pump out at a given time. So on a busy day, when you have a full dining room of people wanting to be served hot, fresh food in person while also doing the delivery orders, it just gets really overwhelming. And the noises they make, like they just, can we just like talk about the noises these things make? Like they could be a little bit more friendly and peaceful, but like, fires everywhere, heat of a restaurant, and do 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 do. Like it's the last thing you want to hear.
It's almost like maybe they got some people that used to work for alarm clock companies or
Right?
something to help them out, right? So let's talk about that then, because obviously it's really important if you're going to be successful in business that people know when you're open, and this is why businesses post business hours. And I know there's nothing more annoying than going to a business during its business hours and finding it closed, right? Because
Mhm.
then you're like, oh, this place isn't reliable. When it comes to these delivery apps, do people have the option of turning them off at certain times of day? Like what could you do to better control the flow of orders? Because I'm imagining with these orders kind of cutting the queue into the kitchen, it lowers the dining experience or makes things a little bit more delayed for those who are in the dining room.
Absolutely. And I mentioned this cafe in Montreal. That was exactly why they stopped using the delivery apps, is because on a day when the cafe is full and they want to serve their customers in person and provide that good experience for them, the delivery orders that just skip the queue, it would take away from that in-person experience for the people at the cafe. Now, one thing you could do theoretically is that you can just like pause no more orders coming in, and then you just, anybody using the app would see not available. But again, as you're saying, that psychologically as a customer, you also don't want that, because if you go to order your favorite restaurant on Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes, and for some arbitrary reason it just says not available right now, you're going to be like, well, that's annoying. Like they're supposed to be open right now. So the delivery apps can cause interrupted service for in person. But then if your delivery orders are taking longer than it said they were going to take, then you're also providing a poor experience. I don't know if you ever ordered on Skip the Dishes and for some reason it takes an hour and a half to show up to your house and you're hungry and you're cranky. So on both sides, you can end up having like unsatisfied customers.
In your experience in the places that you worked and the restaurateurs that you worked with now with your new food web business, do you get the feeling from people that they see these apps as a positive or a negative overall?
Like the restaurant owners.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it really depends, but it's it's almost like you're expected to use them. So, but they come with huge frustrations too. Like I'll give you an example. In Halifax, I'm friends with the owner of Heartwood Restaurant, and she was saying she has to pay $30 a day to use the app on top of the fees they take. And not that that's mandatory, but that's what it costs to show up in like the featured restaurants.
So this is the promotional aspect of what they offer to kind of put yourself up at the top of the list.
But the thing is, if you don't do that promotion, no orders come in, because even if I'm a diehard Heartwood fan and I'm like, you know what, I really want their peanut bowl for dinner, right? So I go on and I'm going to go directly to Heartwood, but then, oh, but this other restaurant has a 2-for-1 special on tonight. I'm going for that, like I'm going to get my roommate some food, and then you just, you ditch the mission you were on. And so in order to go into that featured section, it's like $30 a day. That number depends on the city. Before our podcast, I did some Googling to see if there are set fees. There aren't. It's all the algorithm and depending on how many users in your city. But
They're
if
just trying to max out the revenue.
But if you don't spend that $30 a day, you just don't get featured and you don't get any online orders. So it almost becomes a requirement.
Well, it's funny because this reminds me of some of the complaints I used to get from restaurant owners back in my Yellow Page days. Because back in the Yellow Page days, everyone had that phone book. We didn't have the internet on our phones. And so people would open up the phone book in the Yellow Page section to the restaurants. And our publisher, anyway, what we used to do is we used to put the ads in order by size. So if you bought a full page ad, you were the first one in the section, and then they would progressively get smaller, and then you'd end up with the smaller ads at the back. And it would always be a complaint from customers when you go visit them, because they would say, well, it's not fair. The people that spend more get up at the front. And I'm like, well, we're trying to run a business here. We want to give preferential treatment to the people that spend more money. It's exactly what you're describing. It's the same sort of phenomenon. Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. And I guess advertising is going to be what advertising is going to be, it's, yeah.
Yeah. So let's walk through the unit economics, because in that video that I had made, I talked about how much of the sort of the sale that the delivery apps take, which is a huge chunk in some situations. Have you worked with restaurant owners who maybe realized they weren't making money on them?
Again, I think it depends on the day, right? Like on a certain day, if you have a day where you're going to do 100 takeout orders, right? That's $30 a day is nothing. It's just like, sure, take it. That brought in all these orders. But on the app themselves, the percentage that they take, I didn't personally work on the food cost. And so, but if you have some of those numbers, like I could definitely unpack that here on the spot. Like what's a typical rate that like Uber Eats takes on
it can be anywhere from 20 to 25%.
Yeah, that's hard, right? Margins on food are already so tight, right? So
it's funny that you say that, because people get drawn into the industry because the gross margin on like food costs is quite large, but the problem is you have to have a huge volume of orders to cover all your overheads, right?
Yeah. So when I was in culinary school, like the gold standard for food costing is the 30-30-30-10 rule. So if something costs $10 on a menu, you don't want your food cost to be any more than $3. Your rent and all those other overhead, it accounts for $3. Your labor is $3, and then you have $1 left for your actual net margins. But adding something like 25% fee on food, like where does that fit in? Does that fit into that overhead? If you have an expensive lease and you're running propane to your stove, you already have significantly high overhead. So do you combat that by raising your prices for your online orders? Like, does it cost more money to order on Uber Eats than it does to pick it up in person at the restaurant? And I think that's where, if I had a restaurant, I would try to throw a couple extra dollars premium to cover that, because that's quite a fee.
And that's what people are trying to do, right? Like the way that the apps first came in is they said, look, you're already covering all those overhead expenses. If we bring you additional volume, we're going to be bringing you net extra money through the door. But the problem is that part of the contract is that you put that sticker on your door. And so what ends up happening is your regular customers who you already have, who are already loyal to the restaurant, they see, oh, I can just use the app now. And what ends up happening is your own clientele starts to become cannibalized by the app, who now they're ordering through the app, and you're losing that margin. Originally, when they first came out, I know that part of their contract for most of them was that they had to charge the same prices on app as they did in the store, but it's since been changed in a lot of places. I have a good buddy of mine who's owned several restaurants who's still really connected to a lot of restaurateurs. And ultimately, this is what people have had to do is they've had to increase the prices on the apps. I know that even for people like McDonald's, you know, if you go into their own app, there's frequently heavy discounting and promotions on their product because they've raised the menu prices to make it on par with the apps, but where they basically built in this whole new expense category into their margins or pricing. That's why the price of a meal, even at a place like McDonald's, has gone up so much.
Yeah. And a company like McDonald's, they have the budget to make their own proprietary, app. But when we're looking at a local joint in Halifax or Moncton, you're struggling. And what you just said there too about the delivery apps, assuming, okay, you already have your overhead covered by your in-house. This is only going to bring you extra volume. Sometimes that extra volume, isn't something you can do without adding more staff, right? Or compromising your experience. So it's like the fees that they take don't instantly get justified by higher margins. Because if you're doing more orders, that means you need your prep cook to stay in the restaurant an extra hour to make more things in the morning to be able to do those things in the evening. And it's not always like a linear process of more orders equals more net revenue. Even delivery businesses aside, I worked at a restaurant years ago in Halifax. They're not around anymore. It was Envie, the vegan restaurant, and they started a profit share for us. And we're like, sweet. Like if we cross X monthly thing, all the staff gets a profit share. And then they started taking catering gigs. And then we started getting so busy that we had to hire another person. And then it reached a
No more
point where
profit.
we were doing our revenue was up, but now we were in the red. And then the owners were like, oh yeah, so that profit share that we promised you, yeah, we're cutting that because we're actually losing money even though we're doing more sales.
Tell me how was, because what you're talking about to a certain degree is some degree of open book management where you were being shown like this is how the money works. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the conversations that were happening in the kitchen amongst the staff when you guys found out that you were doing all this work, but the restaurant wasn't making any money? Was there some disbelief there with that?
So the owner's business coach actually came in. Like we closed the restaurant for a day and had like a full day staff meeting. And like the business coach came in and had a big piece of paper and like really helped us all understand, because even the owner was confused. Like, how are we losing money when we're actually making more money? But it was, I don't know if there's a business term for it, but it's this weird bubble where you're in order to fulfill the higher needs, you needed to spend more money, but now your unit economics have completely changed. And
It's like I describe it like a staircase. Like like you in order to serve the increase in sales, you have to add another person, but you can't hire like half a person or 60% of a person. You got to hire a whole person.
Yeah.
And in doing so, your costs go up. Now you are no longer at the break-even point. You're, until revenue goes up to a certain degree where you pass break even again,
Yeah.
and then you only have a certain amount of elasticity before you then have to hire another person. So it's like this back and forth struggle the whole time. I've known people in various industries who've fought with that ladder or the staircase for a long time, and then said, you know what, this is crazy because every time I try to take another step up here, I've got this other period of losses I have to struggle through, and I've actually had people who've dialed their business back
Mm-hmm.
where they've said, I'm going to move backwards to when it was smaller. Like maybe in this case, they would say, I'm going to get rid of catering, because it's adding to these costs. But was it a surprise to the people in the back? Because I find a lot of the times, people see like a plate of spaghetti and they go, geez, this costs like $1.50 to make, and they're charging $13 for it. They must be making tons of money. And people are really blown away when they're shown the actual numbers in these businesses.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And even when I was in cooking school, like the amount of people that complained about the math class were like, ah, we don't need to do this. Just, and I know a lot of restaurateurs that just guess their pricing. But when you really calculate down to the penny, like, okay, it might only cost you $1.50 to make that spaghetti, but like, you know, how many watts of energy does your fridge draw? Right? You have a walk-in fridge, that's probably costing you, hundreds of dollars per month just on your fridge. And all that has to be factored into the
Yeah.
equation. So I think the average person really doesn't understand what goes into the cost of food when it's being prepared for you. Yeah.
What now in that video that I made, I talked a little bit about ghost kitchens. Do you have any experience with those?
Yeah. So I was working part time here in Montreal for a catering company, and they had somebody renting their kitchen to run a ghost kitchen, just to cover, it covered about 40% of their rent by having this person rent their space.
And for those that aren't familiar with the term, a ghost kitchen is simply a kitchen that prepares food. There's no front of the restaurant, but they simply deliver through the apps. So the only place the restaurant exists is on the apps, with the idea being that if they don't have to have the dining room staff, etc., that's what kind of makes up that 25% cut
Yeah.
that the app is taking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't know, like, I don't know the ins and outs of how much money she was making, but she was making a livelihood. She'd been doing it for years. Just her and her husband. She actually had 5 different brands, like 5 different restaurants all listed. So, she really extended the reach of what could come through. And then some days she'd be like, oh my God, like I have way too many orders. I'm going to pause this one so nobody finds this one, because if we get any more orders, we're going to lose our mind. But it's an interesting model. It allows a certain level of flexibility, but you can also like take days off. You can just be like, I'm not working today, and like, as even if you have like the most diehard fan that's like going on Uber Eats specifically to find you, they're just going to get tempted by a 2-for-1 special on something else, and they're going to be fine. It's not like walking in person to your favorite restaurant and they're closed and you're sad. It's like you log onto the app, there's just hundreds of options, you're fine. So it really does give you the flexibility to just say, I'm not working today, I'm closing the ghost kitchen for the day.
So the idea of ghost kitchens kind of, and you mentioned shared kitchens, and you talk about people operating like a catering kitchen, and even food trucks and things will sometimes have a commissary space where they have like a permanent commercial kitchen somewhere to do prep and things like that. Can you kind of open the door and take us into that whole world, because your new business has a lot to do with these commercial kitchens.
Absolutely. Yeah. So whether it's a food truck, that's one example. Your food truck itself is where you do the service, but you need somewhere to do your bigger prep and packaging. But also small businesses that sell at the farmers market. So if you go to a farmers market and somebody's selling spring rolls or hot sauce or sandwiches, they needed a commercial kitchen to prepare that food in advance. And a lot of these smaller businesses aren't going to have their own full-on commercial kitchen somewhere where they're signing a full-time lease. They're going to share a kitchen. So shared kitchens, they've been around forever, but they're becoming more and more popular as the local food movement grows. If you go to the farmers market in Halifax and you walk up to a food vendor and say, hey, where's your kitchen? Hey, where's your kitchen? Some of them will say such and such church or a community center or this cafe in the evenings when they close at 4 p.m. What we're doing at FoodWeb is just making that easier than ever before. During our customer discovery to build FoodWeb, we interviewed over 100 of these small food businesses. And even though they all eventually did find that shared kitchen, it requires dozens and dozens of cold calls and outreach. When it could be as easy as booking an Airbnb. Our slogan is FoodWeb is like Airbnb, but for kitchens. It could be as easy as logging on, viewing things, finding the kitchen that works for you, and booking it. But the shared kitchens really does help these smaller businesses get off the ground without needing to sign their own full-time commercial lease.
Because there is this sort of fleet of commercial kitchens out there that are all certified and approved for making restaurant food, basically, like with the proper dishwashing equipment and the stainless steel countertops and all that kind of stuff. And where do we find them? We find them in churches and community halls. Where else would people be listing these kitchens from?
Legions, Lions clubs, cafes, restaurants, even like banquet centers, event centers. I think of event centers that do one big event once a month and then they're just empty, right? There's a commercial kitchen in there that's just sitting idle all the time. Schools as well. I've been trying to get schools that are like publicly funded, a lot more red tape to try to see if another business is going to get access to that. So it's not the top of my list to get into the schools, but once we have a little more traction, but there's kitchens everywhere, right? People eat all the time. And in Canada alone, there's 98,000 restaurants. There's 27,000 faith buildings. So churches, mosques, synagogues. There's 5,000 municipally owned community centers across Canada, and then thousands more that are run by nonprofits and in community groups, right? So we have hundreds of thousands of commercial kitchens in Canada. And I can't imagine that any more than maybe 10 or 20% of those are at like full capacity every single day, right? So that represents a lot of potential to share for other folks.
Well, and for me, what it indicates is that there's an opportunity for someone that has some sort of food business idea to like test things without making a commitment and investing in, the building out of a space and acquiring all the equipment. What kinds of businesses are typically your clients that are looking to book these sorts of spaces?
So farmers market vendors, people that just want to get started at a small scale, right? They want to sell whatever their special food is one day a week. And then from there, they build that brand reputation. They build a following. One of my favorite examples is Momo Nepal. Shout out to Sujit if you ever get around to hearing this. This guy is a local food legend. He's in his 20s. He's a full-time university student building a food business as a side hustle. And he makes Nepalese momos, little dumplings. And he started selling at one market. Then he started selling at 5 markets. Now he sells the momos at like 3 or 4 small retail shops. And that's that taking those like the little business escalator, right? You got a chance to get to market without signing a 3-year commercial lease. You're renting a kitchen by the hour, right? And if you look at, if somebody rents a commercial kitchen for $30 an hour, if you start using that more than once or twice a week, then you're going to take a step back and be like, whoa, I'm spending a lot of money. Now I should probably just go and sign my own full-time lease. But as you said, sharing a kitchen gives you that ability to start. You don't want to go and get a loan to be paying $4,000 a month on day one. That's really risky, right? So if you can be paying $30 an hour for the first little while until you realize people really like what I got going on here. Now I can take that plunge, and you're also more likely to be able to get the financing you need or whatever, because you can show all that evidence of your sales and your growth.
Okay. We're going to take just a quick break here, and then we're going to steer the conversation a little bit towards restaurant acquisition. So hang tight. Today's live stream interview is brought to you by Xero, the cloud-based accounting software package that makes sense for my small business. Look down in the description to find a link that will give you, as at the time of this recording, 90% off your first 6 months of subscription. You'll also find a link to the video in which I explain why I chose Xero for my business. Awesome. So FoodWeb right now, you are active for Canada, and you are planning on opening very shortly here for the US. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So we had our official launch on December 8th, 2025. We started our company's headquartered in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and we've been onboarding kitchens in the Atlantic region. But we're getting ready to gear up for a full North America launch. So launching into the US as well as the rest all across Canada. But for any American kitchens interested in renting their space and participating in the system, we have a promotion for the first 25 kitchens in the US that joins FoodWeb. They'll get a discount on our platform fees for lifetime. It's a lifetime discount. So you can see that on our website at foodweb.network/USA, where you can see that promotion.
And it's just foodweb.net network for anyone else,
Yeah.
all the Canadian users. Okay, perfect. That's awesome. You before we started here, you were telling me a story about how you went with a buddy to go check out a restaurant that had been put up for sale, and you went in there with the experience of being someone who's worked in these kinds of places. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to go and visit a restaurant that was up for sale and how you helped your friend maybe avoid some problems?
Totally. Yeah. If you're going to buy a restaurant, there's so many things to potentially consider. The big one is that if you're going to buy a restaurant and outfit it, maybe like rename it, rebrand it, you're going to have to deal with the health inspectors that are going to come and do like a bigger audit or walkthrough than what the kind of like regular checkups are going to look like. So that was like the big thing that deterred my friend that wanted to buy this restaurant. Is at the face value, he's like, oh man, like, and it was a building that also had residential units up top. So he was like, I'm going to buy this whole building and I'm going to have, residential income and all these things. But on the restaurant, you start to look at where you might need to sink money into renovations. So it's like, ooh, this wall over here has some moderate water damage. Is that going to pass inspection? And that's something that might not be like a loud, in your face food safety concern. But if you're doing a full turnover and you're going to have a full inspection, the health inspectors might be a little bit more strict than just the everyday. Because if you're already in business, the health inspector comes in, oh, there's some water damage here, but it's not creating any sort of like food safety concern. I'm not going to give them a hard time about that. But if it's like a full on turnover, you're really going to need to dig in and start to look at where am I going to sink, thousands, if not tens of thousands on renos.
Yeah, I've had now in this situation, it sounds like was it a closed restaurant that was just the building was being sold?
The restaurant was still open. Yeah.
Okay. So in my experience, what I've seen happen is that when a restaurant's changing hands, then yeah, the inspectors typically come. Your fire inspector, your food, kitchen, and food handling safety inspector, all this kind of thing. What I've seen happen is that things that have always been there, that have always been violations, but have never been caught, suddenly get caught at this moment because, as you say, a deeper inspection gets done. What I always had in my offers as a broker from the buyer's side was simply that the premises will pass all inspections for the business to carry on, and all of these things end up being on the seller if it's structured properly in your deal making, because the assumption on the buyer's part has to be that if it's been a pizzeria for 30 years, it should be okay to be a pizzeria. They should not be in violation of things, right? And so if something has to be changed, then in the offer it says like it's the seller's responsibility. I know that that may not always happen if other kinds of intermediaries are involved, like real estate agents or things like that. But I always protected my buyers in that way. When you talk about completely changing the restaurant, for example, we would call that a sale, a conversion value sale, where somebody who wants to open a Greek restaurant, it's cheaper to buy the closed Italian restaurant and like redecorate it and put a new menu and put a new name on it than it is to build one from scratch. But again, now you're talking about inspectors who are going to look at it the same way they would look at the brand new location, right? Because it's in their minds, it's like a new place. It's all needs to come up to the current codes and rules. Um, it due diligence for a lot of people, they spend their time looking at financial statements and tax returns and stuff, but having actual inspectors come out who are people that understand the mechanics, the utilities, plumbing, electrical, ventilation, all that kind of stuff,
it really is part of due diligence that people do not do deeply enough. So it was great to see that your friend invited you along to go look at that restaurant.
Yeah, and what it came down to was it was just going to be a bigger project than they wanted to deal with, and even if you can contractually protect yourself with, as you're saying, like what can you offload back to the seller for them to have to, eat that cost in what they're selling. That's all fine and dandy if you have somebody like David C. Barnett helping you navigate that acquisition process. But if you're just going into it yourself and you're like, oh, this looks like a good price, I'm going to look at their sales, I'm going to buy this, like definitely have somebody that can help you with that contract, right? And I talk about this a lot with my friends and my colleagues, is like, we need bigger contracts for almost everything. Like, people just go into things blindly or thinking they're going to be a little casual, but like if you're buying a restaurant, like you need some external support on looking through that contract and the terms. The seller should have their person and the buyer should have their person that is really looking out for them. Because if you go into that blindly, like you're risking a lot. Yeah.
We've got an interesting question here from Subrata. He says, interesting to understand the shifts in the food industry. Just curious how the inspection, quality, and testing are being governed for customer satisfaction. So this is interesting. If somebody rents a commercial kitchen, where's the liability? Like, if the person going in there does not prepare the food properly, is there any kind of liability that falls back on the kitchen owner?
In the instance of a shared kitchen?
Yeah.
So there's not an easy answer there. So technically speaking, like if I rent your kitchen using something like FoodWeb, then we have a contractual agreement in the terms and service agreement that like I have my own commercial general liability insurance that'll protect both damages to the building, but also protect, foodborne illness, death, anything that might happen. So that liability shouldn't fall on you technically. But I met somebody in Halifax that runs a cafe and she does rent it out to other people. And the health inspector just gave her a hard time, saying, if anything happens, it's on you. I don't care what contracts you have. And that's something that I'm actively working on, because if we want to see the growth of the local food movement, I think shared kitchens play a huge part in that.
Sure.
But this woman in Halifax, she owns the Nova Lee Kitchen and Market. The market runs in the summertime. But they started that as a shared kitchen. So they run their own food thing, but they rent out to 3 or 4 other businesses. And the health inspectors didn't love it. They didn't like it. They gave her a hard time. And she had to...
Do you think their concern is around accountability? Like, if different users are using that kitchen, how do we know that everything's being cleaned up properly at the end of each individual user's shift? I mean, with Airbnb, sometimes there's that checklist, take out the garbage, load the dishwasher, that kind of thing. Is it similar with FoodWeb? Is there sort of a list of things that have to be done at the end of each rental time frame?
Yeah, there is. We have a pretty substantial checklist for how to keep things like safe and transparent in a way that's also going to keep the health inspectors happy. But even one simple example, like if I'm a baker and you're a baker, so we both have a bag of flour, and if the health inspector comes in and sees 2 bags of flour on the same shelf, one's mine, one's yours, but like we don't remember whose is whose, that's bad. The health inspector is going to be like, nope, shut this down, might even throw out the flour. Like, everything needs to be labeled, whose is whose, because what if there was a recall from the flour, right? So it's really, really important to have clear distinction on whose is what for that liability and traceability. But at FoodWeb, we give the kitchens a comprehensive checklist of, if you want to rent your kitchen, here's like everything you need to think about before you even list your kitchen on the platform. Do you have enough storage space to be able to distinguish? If it's all just going to get smashed together on one little shelf, renting your kitchen to somebody else just might not be for you. Maybe you need to buy a second shelf. Now, we do also give kitchen owners the option to not only charge an hourly price to use the kitchen, but you can set an extra monthly fee for storage. So if you want to rent your kitchen and you think, okay, in order to do this well, I'm going to need to put another fridge or another shelving unit, you can add a cost to that to make sure you can recoup those costs.
So you can literally create a second pantry, so to speak, for that tenant, that part-time user of the kitchen to go keep some of their stuff on site.
Totally.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I'll be curious to see how you do. Let me know, like maybe a year from now, you can come back and talk to us about how many users you have and how the launch into the US has gone. But I think it's definitely a great idea, and it makes a lot of sense for anyone that wants to do anything, from someone who wants to bottle, their family's famous hot sauce to someone who wants to prepare food just for the occasional catering gig. Clearly being able to go on, just like book a kitchen for a few hours, is going to make it so much easier for people to get into this kind of business.
Mm-hmm. And help restaurants that are struggling have an extra revenue line, right? The report just came out recently. 41% of restaurants across Canada are operating at a loss, right? Yeah. So if you're closed on a Monday and Tuesday, why not diversify your revenue stream? So it helps those small businesses get started and helps the existing kitchens, cover some of their costs.
Yeah. And this has been great, Justin. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Great conversation, and good luck, man.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's great to see you all here today. Stay tuned. We'll be back in March with more live stream guests. And remember, we're going to be moving to Thursday afternoons. So we'll see you in a few weeks.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally, and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.